Are you struggling to create an intentional headspace? Unable to connect deeper with yourself? Come, and together, let's address the elephant in the room. I'm your host, Sinead Roche, and this is the Uncomfortable Podcast. So back in my sophomore year of high school, I went through a 2-week depressive episode where honestly all I would do was be in my room and I'd be watching Grey's Anatomy. I wouldn't be doing anything. I remember a lot of just like crying, breakdowns. Actually don't think back to this time a lot. But I just remember I was depressed. And then, this was during winter break. Then the year started back up, and then COVID hit, became even more impacted, like I think many of us did, especially not being able to talk to many people and connect with people outside of your family. Thank God for the internet. But yeah, I remember it was a really, really hard time. And I would get really upset at myself. Like I'd get really upset at myself even throughout like junior year, because I'd be like, when am I going to be me again? When am I going to be like back to being happy again? Like, when is that going to happen to me? Like, when am I going to get my spark back? And that's what I want to talk to you guys today about, like getting your spark back. Like, is it even possible? What does that mean? What does that look like? And I think this happens in multiple scenarios. Like, it could be like when people close to you die, when you get heartbroken, when you lose someone in any capacity, or when you become mentally unfit as well. And there's many different experiences, but I think it's just like when you go through those experiences that really just take you down to the depths of your soul, and you're just like, when is it gonna end? And like, when can I just be me again and be happy? And I think many of us talk about that spark coming back into our eye. And first of all, what is that? Like, what does that mean, that spark? I think personally for me, it's just like being happy again and being free and being able to be happy. And yeah, I think just being a bit more carefree. Like, do we get that back? Does that happen? And this is my personal answer to this. I don't think that you get the same spark back. I think that spark comes back, but it's a different spark. And there's many positives and negatives. Like, we can see that as a good thing, we can see that as a bad thing, But the reason why I think you get a new spark is because you're no longer the same person. With every experience, it impacts your identity, it impacts like who you are becoming. And it also impacts like how you're able to be like carefree and be happy again and just be yourself again, quote unquote, because do you really get back to being yourself? But yeah, I think a new spark comes back. I think a new spark arises from this. And I think that the more, like, obviously you only know about like who you were in the past. Like, what it meant and what it felt like to be you in the past. And I think like, as after we've grieved the situation, and as we grieve the situation, one thing we don't realize is that even that past person who we were, like, we still have to grieve them as well, because unfortunately that past version of you is not coming back fully. Like, you've gone through something now, like something that's hurt you, something that will impact you for years to come. It will impact how you think about different things. And whether you become more optimistic or pessimistic, these things, like, I don't think you come back from these experiences like as the same person, because the person before didn't have that experience like in their memory, and now you do. And I think it's really important, like, as we try to get back, quote unquote, to being ourselves, it's important for us to grieve who we were, as we grieve the situation, and eventually, hopefully, we start to welcome who we are becoming, and we welcome that new spark. Even though it might be different, it might feel different, we might not even recognize it at first because it's new to us. But I think that's when we get happy again. That's when we become happy again. And I think, no, I not even think, I know, like, again, because you know who the past version of yourself was, like, you try to fight for that person so much. Like, you really do. You try to fight for that person. You do. I remember, like, after getting heartbroken, I tried to fight for that person, but that person was not there anymore. Like, not fully. Like, now that person had undergone this experience and was just like, I'm not the same. And it honestly, it became so exhausting. Like, it's not like people who are holding, like, you know, even in that situation, it's not like a person's like holding that power over you. It's just like the situation itself, it's impacting you. Like, and that's not, you're not lesser than, you're not weaker to like now change or like be impacted by that. It's just natural and that happens. And I think that if we continue to just like try to go back to being who we were, like, I feel like that's just so exhausting and that's so tiring. Like, and this does have a lot to do with the fact that like you kind of have to let go of that version, again, grieving that version and letting go of the control that you think you have over like who you become next. But I think it's just more exhausting trying to get that old spark back when there's a new spark that you haven't even been acquainted with yet that might just be better. And I think it always is better because, I mean, the old spark didn't understand the new spark, if that makes sense. Like, who you were in the past wouldn't have made you happy with who you are now because of the different experiences that those versions of yourself have undergone. And so as we go through these experiences and as we try to get back to being us and, or just being us again, I'm trying to not say again, but just, yeah, you know what I'm saying. It's really important, again, being kind to yourself, allowing yourself to grieve, like grieve the situation. Grieve. It's like, you don't have to be 100% again. Like, I think because the emotions are so hard, some of us, like, we cope very differently. We're in denial, we avoid. Some of us just try to go back to being happy 100%. That's just not possible, like, sometimes, and that's okay. You know, you haven't undergone that situation yet. Like, you can have a different style of coping with it. Like, for once, it doesn't have to be what you're always used to. And it's okay to express your emotions during these times. I'm pretty sure also, like, even the people who are around you, like, who understand you're going through something, they'll give you the grace with that. And, like, give yourself the grace with that as well. So take rest. Don't rush over those feelings, especially when they're uncomfortable. Because the thing is, I feel like you're only also going to experience those emotions like once, in depth. Like, you might replay them a bit too often. I've done that in the past. But just sit with them for a while. And then as you know, eventually time passes, you start to accept what's happened and let go in some sense. You also, you know, you're trying to figure out, how do I navigate myself back to who I was? And with that, I would give the advice of, like, reconnect with your inner child. Maybe go outside and play. And I know that sounds silly and stupid, but, like, isn't that what our spark is to a degree? Like, when we were carefree, I think you're most carefree when you're a kid, because you don't know that much, like, about what's going on, what you need to worry about. And so in that sense, go back to, like, what did you used to do? And that could include, like, exercising, because that's also going to help, like, boost serotonin, dopamine, so those feel-good hormones. Maybe even go back to rediscovering old passions that you had, that maybe that version of you that just, you know, not ended, but, like, is changing now, like, didn't used to do it. Wasn't doing actively at that point. So maybe go all the way back. You know, I think for myself, like, I started reading books again. I used to love reading romance books. And after getting my heart broken, I was just like, let me go back to doing this. Like, this was fun. I exercised. I mean, I was always going to the gym, but, like, that was just, like, a passion of mine. And then, like, recently, like, I'm still getting my spark back. Not from that situation, but just from, like, I think we're always going through other situations that are also just bringing us down a bit. Like, I'm getting my spark back by just even, like, I went ice skating, like, a few weeks ago. Like, I used to do that as a kid, and it was so much fun. And I just remember just being so carefree in the moment while falling on my ass, and like twisting my ankles. But I was just like, this is a part of me. This is who I am. Like, this is, I know, it was just, I was carefree at that moment. I think it's also really important, like, you know, when you're going through these times and trying to find your spark again, surrounding yourself with people and a community who inspire you and who energize you. Energize you is most important in this, because you don't want to be around people who are draining. Like, you know, I wouldn't say rush into happiness necessarily. Like, if that is what works for you, great. For me, it doesn't work that way, because then I'm just like ignoring my feelings. But be around people who make you laugh. Like, I think that's so nice, because then you get to be present with them and you get to surround yourself with like good vibes and good energy. And I've talked about, like, you know, why connections are so important in other past episodes. And so just being around that also, like, while you're going through hard times is extremely important, and extremely important when it comes to like finding yourself again. Because sometimes, like, not sometimes, the people who you are around, like, they know parts of you. Like, if they're observant, and not even if they're just observant, but like, they know you. They know parts of you that like can help you, I guess, reignite some part of you. Again, it won't be the same. It won't be the same, but still, I think that's also really important. Another thing is also really important, gosh, is celebrating small wins about when you're feeling better. I know I have this tendency, like, to, first of all, like, if I've been sad for a very long time, or if I've gone through something that takes a long time, it's so hard sometimes to be like, oh, am I happy right now? So like, celebrate that when you notice it, like, oh my gosh, wow, you know, I might go back to being a bit sad after this, but like, wow, I had this moment, crazy, like, let me write this down, or let me just like take a snapshot in my mind for that. It's also, you know, be aware that you're also not comparing yourself to the old you, and like what it meant to be happy then versus what it means to be happy now, because I think you'll miss out on new aspects of yourself that also make you happy, and new moments that like you're also finding like, I like this, I like being around this, because you're constantly like, okay, but this is not my 100. Maybe this is your 100 right now. Maybe this is your 100 right now. Maybe you're trying your best right now. You wanting to like compare to what that looked like before is not going to help you, because that's also you still holding on to that. And I know that's so hard. I know that's so hard. But I think even those aspects, like that happiness, it will gradually come back. But like, as you're going through that journey, like, and becoming happy again, having that carefree spark again, like, do you understand it's not going to come like at the speed of light? Like, it's going to take time, and it's going to look different and feel different. Another piece of advice would be to try to create new traditions, like in light of this, especially when things are attached to people. It's like really important that you find your spark in other ways, by doing other things that you didn't do maybe, you know, and also plan things for the future that you can like, you know, be excited about. Like, I know this not other week, but like a few weeks ago, like, this girl who I talked with like on Instagram, like her and I had like planned out like this coffee, like, coffee chat. And I was so excited for it. Like by the end of the week, I was looking, like during the week, I was looking forward to it. And it wasn't something like that I was used to doing. And it was just like exciting to like meet a new friend, you know. So planning things out already in advance sometimes like will also help us get out of this, like, you know, just like that. I guess like that, yeah, a low feeling will help us get out of that low feeling as we're ready to get back to quote unquote being ourselves. And I think honestly, trust the process and lower your expectations also of how you turn out when it comes to you emotionally. Like, you might have all these expectations and like, you know, I need to get back to this version of you, but like sometimes it's going to take longer. It's going to look different, feel different. And you're never going to feel satisfied if you think there's this level that you have to meet. There's this level that if you don't meet it, it means you're not happy. That's not true. Sometimes it just means that you need to redefine what that looks like and what that feels like at that moment. And also take into consideration what you've just undergone. Don't brush that by like it's something that's so easy. And I know all of this, again, it takes time. You have to be patient with yourself. Like, don't rush yourself, because when you're forcing that spark, you're going to know you're forcing that spark. Like, I know when I'm forcing, like, my spark. I know when I'm forcing myself to act carefree or to be 100% happy, like, after I've undergone something. And it's draining. It's making you more exhausted. At least that's my own experience with it. I think that in order to overcome this, like, something that you can do, and some things that I've done is, like, I've written, like, love letters to myself, especially, like, love letters, like, to the past self who I was. And I've just grieved about who that was. Because, like, I don't know. I just sometimes, like, I 100% miss the person I was, like, in a lot of different experiences where I felt like I was more carefree. But you can't change that anymore. And so I kind of, just writing those letters out. I think personifying it. Sorry, my computer's right now. I don't know why it's turned on. But yeah, that could be something to help you get through those moments. Then there's also physically noting down the small wins, again, like, of when you're feeling better, so that you can look back at them, like, especially when you're grieving, like, heavily going back to grieving, and it's just like, but you know what, I had this win, and that means I'm going to have other wins as well. And then also noting down the new things that you love about yourself, so you can recognize those things about yourself, so you can also recognize the change. I think it makes you aware about yourself, and I think it's also really just nice as you get to know, what this new carefree, what this new happy version of yourself looks like. And then I think lastly, like, what's really important is allow that spark to come back. Be present. So many times, I think I've mentioned this, it's just like, you get so used to feeling some type of way, like, and I wouldn't say depression is the right, like, example of that. Again, if it's like a disorder, if it's like you are mentally unfit, I think it's a different example in that sense. But, like, you get just so used to feeling some type of way, whether that be even like numb or something, that you forget to be present. And then you miss out on, like, when the spark could possibly be there. And, like, you also just don't allow yourself to be happy again. And I think that has a lot to do with, like, again, what the situation you handled with, like, how is that going? But I want you to know you can be happy again. And I know from myself, like, it's not going to matter, like, if I say it, like, you have to believe it with yourself. It might have to come from a different person to hear that, like, for you to actually believe it. But you can be happy again. You just also have to be present with it and allow yourself to be happy and allow yourself not to hold on. Not for too long, because otherwise you miss out on so much as well. But again, it's a process. It takes time. So be patient with it while you find your new spark. And so with that said, I want you guys to reflect and see, like, what activities, what people or moments in my life have made me feel most alive, and how can I intentionally bring more of those into my life now? So we go back to that thing of, like, we're planning a bit more ahead now. Like, we want to find this spark again, So what does that look like? Activities, people, moments in your life that have made you feel most alive, and how can you intentionally bring those about again? Thank you guys so much for listening to this week's episode. Hey guys, thank you so much for supporting this week's episode of The Uncomfortable Podcast. Make sure to tune in every Monday for a new episode on Spotify and YouTube, and go check out our TikTok and Instagram for more content.